Hello, I'm continuing my reviews on the Planet of the Apes series with Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Now, Escape from the Planet of the Apes is the third film in the Planet of the Apes series, and this came out in 1971, and this one is written by Dehn, who also wrote Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Now, since this movie picks up where Beneath the Planet of the Apes left off, I kinda have to give away a spoiler about what happened at the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes in order to explain the plotline of this movie, but basically in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, it was pretty much confirmed that the reason the world became the way it did was because of a nuclear war, and in that movie, there were all these mutants that worshipped a nuclear warhead capable of destroying the entire planet as if it were a god, and at the end of the movie, the gorillas came into the mutants' lair and started tearing down the bomb, not realizing what it really was, and at the end of that movie, Taylor ended up getting shot, and his hand ended up going on the button setting off the bomb. The movie left it kind of ambiguous as to whether or not he did this on purpose, or if this was just an accident, but basically, the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes was the whole world was literally destroyed, and everyone died. Which is why I consider that to be an even more shocking ending than the twist ending of the first film. So you might be wondering, how do they make a sequel to a movie that ended where the whole planet literally blew up? And the answer to that question is quite simple. Time travel. So the plot of Escape from the Planet of the Apes is, in the movie you're supposed to assume that Zira and Cornelius and this other chimpanzee named Milo somehow found the remains of Taylor's ship. Well, I'm not really sure if it was supposed to be Taylor's ship or Brett's ship from the second film, but I think they actually state in the movie that it was Taylor's ship. Somehow they found the remains of Taylor's ship, and they rebuilt it, and literally escaped from the planet right before the planet blew up at the end of the previous film, but somehow they were sent back in time to the year 1973, and in the movie it's theorized that somehow the shockwave from the planet blowing up somehow created a time rift which sent them back in time. So the movie begins where Zira, Cornelius, and Milo land in the ocean in 1973, and the military ends up discovering them and discovering that they're apes, and they end up getting taken to a zoo to be examined, and eventually they reveal that they can talk and are actually quite intelligent, and unfortunately Milo ends up getting killed, which I don't want to give away how he gets killed, but he eventually gets killed, so now it's only Zira and Cornelius, and what happens is the media eventually finds out about them, and then the whole world, and Zira and Cornelius become celebrities overnight pretty much, and the first half of the movie is kind of a fish out of water comedy, and it is actually pretty funny, but by the second half of the movie, it gets much darker, and it goes back to the philosophical themes and social commentary of the first two movies. Like, by the second half of the movie, Zira lets it out that her and Cornelius are actually from the future, and that one day mankind will be ruled over by apes, and it's also revealed that she's pregnant, and in the movie there's this doctor named Dr. Heslin who is the antagonist of the movie, and he believes that this baby that Zira is about to have will be the beginning of what will eventually become the uprising of the apes, so now he wants Zira's baby destroyed, and that's the basic plot line of Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Now, the film stars Kim Hunter as Zira, and she played Zira in the first two movies as well, and in the film, Roddy McDowall plays Cornelius. Now, Roddy McDowall played Cornelius in the first film, but for some reason did not play him in the second film, but he comes back to play him in this film. Now, I personally loved Escape from the Planet of the Apes, and I liked how this film was so radically different from the first two movies, and that's something I appreciate about the first three Planet of the Apes movies, because all three films are different in a way. Like, the first film was a straight-up science fiction movie, the second one was actually kind of a horror film, or at least it had a lot of horror elements in it. This one pretty much starts out as a comedy. Of course, it gets much more serious by the second half of the movie, but the first half of the movie is pretty much a comedy, and I actually thought some of the humor in this worked really well. Like, in the beginning, when they first reveal that they can talk, it's because they're at the zoo, and these doctors are trying this experiment out on them, and they're hanging a banana in the cage, and they're expecting Zira to grab it, and the one doctor's like, I don't understand why she's not taking it, and eventually Zira gets so annoyed that she just says, because I loathe bananas, and it's just, I thought it was really funny, and then they're in front of all these government officials, and Zira reveals to them that she could talk, and then they turn them to Cornelius and say, can you talk too? And he gets up and says, only when she lets me. So there's a lot of really funny humor in the film, you know, at least in the first half of the film. By the second half, it almost radically shifts tones, but honestly, that didn't really bother me, though. But I have to say that the end of this movie is one of the most heartbreaking endings I've ever seen in a movie. You know, the film, in my opinion, is successful at both being very funny, but also very heartbreaking at the same time. You know, it really is a very good movie. Also, in the movie, the villain, Dr. Hesselin, he's an interesting character because even though he is the villain of the movie, in some ways you don't really blame him for what he's doing because he's really thinking about his own race. You know, he's thinking about the future, and he just wants to prevent the apes from eventually taking over man, but at the same time he goes about it the wrong way, and he ends up becoming the villain even if his intentions may have been good. Now, I do have a few minor problems with the movie. Like, there's a few lines of dialogue in the movie which kind of contradict the events of the first two movies, but only a little bit. But you know, so there's a few continuity problems, and also the character of Zira, who is a character that I really like, she does make some rather stupid decisions in this movie, and honestly, to me, the character of Zira seems much smarter than that, but she makes some decisions that kind of doesn't really fit her character, at least not in my opinion, and also, there's some effects work in this movie which isn't the best. Like, the makeup effects for Zira and Cornelius and Milo is really, really good, but then there's a scene in the movie where you see a gorilla at the zoo, or a gorilla in a cage, and it's literally a guy in a gorilla costume. You would think they would have either gotten a real gorilla, or, well, maybe a real gorilla would have been too dangerous considering what they did with the gorilla in the movie, but you would think it would have been maybe a guy in gorilla makeup, but no, it's a guy in a really cheap-looking King Kong outfit, pretty much. You know, so that was a little, like, I don't know. It just didn't really fit with the really good makeup effects for Zira and Cornelius, and then you'd see this really fake-looking gorilla costume. I don't know, but besides that, I still enjoy the film a lot. But yeah, that's my review on Escape from the Planet of the Apes. I definitely recommend it, and bye.